On February 9th, 2012, a 44-year-old Illinois farmer named Earl Braddock received a letter in his mailbox from John Deere Corporate Customer Relations in Moline, Iowa. The letter was printed on heavy cream-colored stock, with the green Deere logo embossed at the top and a corporate signature stamped in blue ink at the bottom. It informed Earl that his 1984 John Deere 4640 row crop tractor, serial number RW4640P015738, had been identified through dealer service records as having accumulated approximately 6,200 hours of operation. According to the letter, this placed the tractor beyond what John Deere's Product Lifecycle Assessment Division classified as its optimal service window. The letter recommended that Earl contact his local John Deere dealer to discuss modern replacement options, and enclosed a trifold brochure for the new 7R series lineup, including a financing offer of 0% for 72 months through Deere Financial. Earl read the letter standing at his mailbox at the end of the gravel drive on his 640-acre corn and soybean farm outside Gibson City, Illinois, in 9-degree air, with the wind cutting across the stubble field at 15 miles an hour. He folded the letter once, put it in his left chest pocket, and walked back to the pole barn, where the 4640 sat with its engine block heater plugged into the outlet and its hydraulic oil still warm from running the front-end loader that morning to move round bales. The 4640 was 28 years old. Earl's father, Harold Braddock, had bought it new from Prairie Implement in Gibson City in November of 1984 for $47,600, the most expensive piece of equipment Harold had ever purchased. It was the quad-range transmission model with the SoundGuard cab, power shift on the console, 2 rear hydraulic remotes, and a Category 3 3-point hitch rated for implements up to 18,000 pounds. The engine was a 7.6-liter turbocharged inline, 6-cylinder diesel, producing 155 horsepower at the PTO. Harold had broken it in on fall tillage, 300 hours of dissing and chisel plowing before the first oil change at the dealer. He ran it for 11 years before the heart attack took him in 1995. In those 11 years, the 4640 accumulated 3,800 hours and never missed a day of work. Earl took over the farm at 27. He kept the 4640 because it was the best tractor on the place and because his father had taught him how to maintain it. Every 50 hours, grease every fitting. Every 200 hours, change the oil and filters. Every 1,000 hours, replace the hydraulic filter and check the turbo for shaft play. Earl followed that schedule with the same discipline Harold had. He kept a spiral-bound maintenance log in the cab that recorded every service date, every part number, every fluid change going back to November 1984. The log was 214 pages long. It was the most complete maintenance record of any 4640 in Ford County, and possibly in the state of Illinois. If you value stories about the equipment decisions that define a farm, the ones made in quiet, carried for decades, and never forgotten, this channel tells them. We don't rush, we don't sell, we just remember. 3 weeks after the letter arrived, a man named Mitchell Crane drove a white Chevrolet Malibu rental car up Earl's gravel lane and parked next to the milk house. Mitchell was 42 years old and carried the title of Regional Product Lifecycle Specialist for the John Deere Moline District. He wore a dark navy suit jacket over a white shirt with no tie, charcoal slacks, polished brown Oxfords, and a green Deere lapel pin. He carried a leather portfolio in one hand and an iPad in a green rubberized corporate case in the other. He had driven 91 miles from the Moline office and had never set foot on a working farm in his life. Earl was in the pole barn changing the oil on the 4640. When Mitchell walked through the open bay door, the tractor was idling on the stand. Earl always ran the engine warm before draining to suspend the particulates. The 7.6-liter diesel hummed steady and even, the turbo whispering at idle, the exhaust rising clean and gray from the stack into the cold February air. "Mr. Braddock, I'm Mitchell Crane from John Deere Product Lifecycle. We sent a letter last month regarding your 4640. Earl looked up from the drain pan. "I got it." Mitchell smiled the kind of smile that comes from a 2-day corporate training seminar on customer engagement. He opened his leather portfolio and pulled out a laminated chart. "Your tractor has crossed the 6,000-hour threshold. According to our life cycle data, and we've analyzed over 14,000 units in this model range, the 4640 reaches its end of optimal service at approximately 6,000 hours. Beyond that point, the probability of catastrophic component failure, engine, transmission, final drive, increases exponentially." He tapped the chart with his finger. "You're operating in what we call the red zone." Earl watched the oil drain into the pan. Black and clean, no metal flakes, no coolant swirl. "Red zone." "Yes, sir. I understand there's an emotional attachment to legacy equipment. We see it across the Midwest. But from an operational efficiency standpoint, the cost of maintaining a tractor beyond its life cycle window exceeds the cost of financing a replacement within 2 to 3 seasons. He swiped to a new screen on his iPad. Now, the 7R270 is the natural successor to the 4640 platform. 270 horsepower, IVT transmission, integrated auto track, full precision AGI connectivity. I can have Prairie Implement work up a trade-in valuation today, and what's the trade-in on a 4640 with 6,200 hours? Mitchell hesitated for half a second, the kind of hesitation that tells you a man is about to deliver a number he's not proud of. Based on current market comparables, the wholesale value would be in the range of $8,000 to $10,000. I paid $47,600 for it new in 1984. Yes, that's 28 years of depreciation, Mr. Braddock. The machine has reached the end of its. The machine is running right now. Earl nodded at the 4640. The diesel idled behind them like a heartbeat. 6,200 hours of heartbeat, steady as a clock. "Does it sound like it's in a red zone?" Mitchell closed the iPad case and tucked the portfolio under his arm. He looked at the 464. "Oh, the way a car salesman looks at a 10-year-old pickup, with professional pity, designed to make the owner feel behind. I appreciate your confidence in the equipment, Mr. Braddock, but the data doesn't lie. These tractors weren't engineered for indefinite service. At some point, the iron gives out." He paused. "When it does, I just want to make sure you have a plan." Earl pulled the drain plug from the catch pan and began threading it back into the oil pan. "I've got a plan. Change the oil every 200 hours. Change the filters. Grease the fittings. Keep the antifreeze at -34. Replace what wears out before it breaks. That's my plan. Same plan my father had. Mitchell left a business card on the workbench. Earl never picked it up. Ruth found it 3 months later behind the coffee thermos and threw it away. Earl did not call Prairie Implement. He did not request a trade-in valuation. He did not look at the 7R Series brochure. He walked into his pole barn the next morning at 5:15, unplugged the block heater, climbed into the sound guard cab of the 4640, and drove it into the south field to start breaking ground for spring. The hour meter read 6,214. The engine started on the first turn of the key, the same way it had started every morning since November of 1984. The 4640 crossed 7,000 hours in the fall of 2013. Earl replaced the water pump, the original, 29 years old, the seal finally weeping coolant onto the front timing cover. Virgil Kemp drove over from Paxton with the replacement pump and a six-pack of Miller High Life, and they did the job in 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Parts cost $218. The dealer would have charged $1,400 installed and put the tractor on a flatbed to haul it to the shop. 8,000 hours in the spring of 2015. The turbocharger shaft showed 3/1000ths of play. Still within spec, but Earl pulled it anyway and sent it to a rebuild shop in Peoria. They balanced it, replaced the bearings, and sent it back in 9 days. Cost $640. Earl installed it himself on a Tuesday evening after planting. The boost came back crisp, and the exhaust gas temperature dropped 12 degrees, which meant the combustion was cleaner than it had been in 3 years. In between those milestones, the 4640 did what it had always done. It pulled a 2210 field cultivator through 640 acres every spring. It ran the 1770 NT corn planter at 6 miles an hour without a hiccup in the hydraulic drive. It powered the grain auger at harvest, filling the bin at 1,200 bushels an hour, while Earl stood at the base and watched the corn pour in under floodlights at 9 o'clock at night. It pulled the manure spreader, the hay rake, the round baler. It cleared snow with the front-end loader in January and moved round bales in February and broke ground in March and didn't stop until the last load of corn was in the bin in November. 500 hours a year, every year, without complaint and without drama. The men at Prairie Implement knew about the 4640. Wayne Feltz, the service manager, had pulled it up in the dealer database once out of curiosity and found the maintenance record Earl submitted, with every warranty claim in the first 5 years. Meticulous, complete, every line filled in. Wayne had told the parts counter guys, and the parts counter guys had told the technicians. And by 2015, there wasn't a man in that dealership who didn't know that Earl Braddock's 4640 was approaching 9,000 hours on the original engine and original transmission. Some of them were proud of it, the way craftsmen are proud of their own work, surviving. Others, the ones who made their living selling new iron, saw it differently. 9,000 hours in 2017. The quad-range transmission, synchros in third gear, started grinding on cold mornings. Earl drained the transmission fluid and found fine brass particles on the magnetic drain plug. The synchronizer rings were wearing, not failing. Virgil listened to it and said, "She's talking to you, but she's not complaining." Earl switched to a heavier transmission fluid, John Deere High Guard, straight from the dealer, no aftermarket substitutes. And the grinding stopped. It never came back. 10,000 hours on March 8th, 2019. Earl was dissing the North Quarter when the meter rolled over. He didn't stop. He didn't take a photograph. He didn't call anyone. He just kept dissing. Tom Lindquist heard about it at the co-op elevator and wrote it down in his spiral notebook. Earl's 464 hit 10,000 hours. Still original engine. Still original transmission. Virgil says it'll go to 15. By that point, the 4640 had become something in the township. Not famous. Some farmers don't make things famous, but known. The men at the farm and fleet coffee counter knew it the way they knew the weather or the price of corn. As a fact of the landscape, something that had always been there and showed no sign of leaving. When young farmers asked Earl how he kept a 40-year-old tractor running past 10,000 hours, he gave the same answer every time. I don't skip anything. I don't wait for it to break. I fix what's wearing before it fails, and I use the right fluids. It was not a secret. It was not a trick. It was discipline. The same discipline that Harold Braddock had practiced, and the same discipline that John Deere's Product Lifecycle Assessment Division had built an entire business model around assuming farmers would not maintain. Mitchell Crane's office in Moline sent a second letter in 2020. This one was addressed not just to Earl, but to every owner of a 4640, 4840, or 4440 with more than 8,000 hours on the dealer service database. The letter announced a new Heritage Equipment Transition Program, a corporate initiative offering $5,000 above wholesale trade-in value on any tractor built before 1990, applicable toward the purchase of any new 7R, 8R, or 9R series model through Deere Financial. The program was designed, the letter said, to help producers transition away from aging equipment and into the precision agriculture platform that modern farming demands. Earl read the second letter at his kitchen table. Ruth watched him fold it and put it in the same chest pocket where the first one had gone 4 years earlier. What did they offer? She asked. $5,000 to take my tractor. Above trade-in. Above 8,000, so 13. Ruth poured coffee and said nothing. $13,000 for a tractor that had put in 10,000 hours of work and cost Earl less than $9,000 in total maintenance over the 10 years since it crossed the red zone. The tractor owed them nothing. It owed nobody anything. And John Deere wanted to buy it back for the price of a used pickup truck, so they could sell Earl a $200,000 replacement with a touchscreen and a subscription diagnostic fee. Earl didn't reply to the second letter either. He put it in the manila folder with the first one, the folder he kept in the filing cabinet in the farm office, beside the maintenance log copies and the tax returns. Ruth asked him once why he kept the letters instead of throwing them away. Earl thought about it and said, because someday Nathan might want to know what the tractor was worth to the people who built it and what it was worth to the people who used it. Those are different numbers. In the fall of 2020, Prairie Implement forwarded a corporate customer experience survey to Earl's mailing address. One of the questions asked, what factors most influence your equipment replacement decisions? Earl left it blank. Tom Lindquist got the same survey and wrote in the margin in pencil, Ask Earl Braddock's 4640. The Heritage Equipment Transition Program ran for 18 months. In Ford County alone, 3 farmers considered it, and all 3 called Earl before making a decision. Earl didn't tell them what to do. He just invited them to his pole barn and showed them the maintenance log and let them listen to the 4640 idle. All 3 kept their tractors. The program was quietly discontinued in March of 2021 after fewer than 1,200 tractors were traded in nationwide against a corporate target of 9,000. The farmers who owned those old tractors, the 4440s, the 4640s, the 4840s, the machines John Deere had built in the late 70s and early 80s, with cast iron blocks and gear-driven timing and mechanical fuel injection. Those farmers had done the same math Earl had done. They knew what the tractors cost to maintain. They knew what the replacements cost to finance. And they chose the iron they understood over the technology they would have to rent. Mitchell Crane was reassigned from product life cycle to dealer network development in the spring of 2021. The reassignment was lateral in title, but felt to everyone in the Moline office like what it was. A quiet acknowledgement that the program he had spent 4 years promoting had failed because it was built on a premise that turned out to be wrong. The premise was that farmers would replace their tractors when corporate told them to. The reality was that farmers replaced their tractors when the tractors stopped working, and the 4640s hadn't stopped working. In June of 2023, the 4640 crossed 11,000 hours. Earl was running the hay rake on the east pasture when the meter turned. He didn't notice until he parked it that evening and climbed down and saw the number, 11,003. He stood in the pole barn doorway and looked at the tractor for a long time. The green paint had faded to a color that wasn't in any Deere catalog. Something between sage and pewter, the color of iron that has spent 40 years in the sun and the rain and the cold and never asked to come inside. The decals were gone. The yellow stripe was a ghost. The sound guard cab windows had been resealed twice. The seat foam had been replaced once. The steering wheel was polished dark and smooth where Earl's left hand rested at 10 o'clock. The same position Harold's hand had rested in for 11 years before that. 11,000 hours. On an engine John Deere said should have been scrapped at 6. On a tractor that a corporate specialist in polished Oxfords had called a liability. On iron that Harold Braddock had bought new for $47,600 in 1984. And Earl Braddock had maintained with nothing more than discipline, the right fluids, and the memory of his father's hands. Total maintenance cost on the 4640 from 6,000 to 11,000 hours. The 5,000 hours John Deere said were impossible, was $11,427. That included the water pump, the turbo rebuild, the transmission fluid change, 4 sets of injectors, 2 alternators, 1 starter motor, and 10 years of oil, filters, and grease. $2.29 per hour. The 7R27, that Mitchell Crane had tried to sell Earl in 2012 would have cost, at 0% over 72 months, approximately $39 per hour of operation before fuel, maintenance, or insurance. Earl never did the math on paper. He didn't need to. The math lived in the sound of the engine, that low, steady, unbroken diesel note that had been the same since his father drove it off the lot in 1984. In the spring of 2026, The John Deere 4640 sits in Earl Braddock's pole barn outside Gibson City with 11,461 hours on the meter. The engine block heater is plugged in. The hydraulic oil is warm. The maintenance log is 267 pages long. Nathan came home to the farm last year, and the first thing Earl taught him was the 4640's grease schedule. 14 fittings every 50 hours. No exceptions. "Why this tractor?" Nathan asked. Earl thought about it for a moment. "Because everything I know about farming, I learned on the seat of this machine. And everything your grandfather knew about farming, he put into it." Mitchell Crane works in dealer network development in Moline now. He drives a leased Audi Q5 and lives in a townhome in Bettendorf with a view of the Mississippi River that he pays $2,200 a month for. He has a new title and a new business card and a new laminated chart that tracks dealer consolidation metrics instead of tractor life cycle data. He has never called Earl Braddock again. He has never driven back down that gravel lane. He has never stood in a pole barn and listened to a 7.6-liter diesel that was supposed to be dead 5,000 hours ago and heard it tell him, in the only language iron knows, that he was wrong. The Heritage Equipment Transition Program is not mentioned in John Deere's annual report. The laminated chart showing the red zone was archived in a SharePoint folder that no one has opened since 2021. But the 4640 is still running. It starts every morning on the first turn of the key. The turbo spools up clean. The hydraulics hold pressure. The quad-range transmission shifts through all 12 gears without a grind. 11,000 hours past the day Harold Braddock drove it home, and 5,000 hours past the day John Deere said it should have been scrapped. The iron does what it was built to do. The same thing, the same way, in the same field, for the same family. $47,600, 42 years, 11,000 hours, $2.29 each. And the letter from Moline is still in Earl's chest pocket, folded once, never answered.